The next speaker is John Depriest, who's head of planning with the City of Chelsea.
Thank you for having me here. I'm going to talk, my talk is going to be a little bit different from the last two. I've been asked to talk about how climate change is going to affect the economic development in a small city. So that's what I'm going to focus on. Just a little, for those of you who don't know Chelsea, just a little background. City is 2 square miles in size. It's the smallest city in Massachusetts. Originally settled as farming for Boston landowners back in the 1600s. Built out over 100 years ago as part of the Industrial Revolution in the mid-19th century. Population peaked about 45,000 back in the 30s. It's now approximately 35,000 officially. Unofficially, because of lack of response to the census and undocumented population, we're probably closer to the 45 that we peaked at in the 30s. We serve as a gateway for successive waves of immigrants. The school department tells me there's 120 languages spoken in the Chelsea school system. Geologically, we are a product of the glacial period. This gives you a locus of where Chelsea is with Atlantic Ocean here, the Mystic River, and then Chelsea River and Island End, and then along the border is the Mill Creek. There are coastal lowlands surrounding 5 drumlins: Admirals Hill, Bellingham Hill, Mount Washington. I always forget the name of this one: Powderhorn Hill and Mill Hill. As the city's been built out for such a long time, the city's economic development policy is one of redevelopment. That is, expanding economic opportunities by rebuilding or replacing existing marginal or inefficient buildings and uses. This is the floodplain map as it exists today, and I say it exists today because FEMA is currently in the process of going over the public review process for updated maps. You can see that, for the most part, it hugs the Island End River, the waterfront, filled land, and then up the Mill Creek. And not veering that much from the waterfront, not extending that far into the city. This is the proposed draft flood map that FEMA is currently reviewing and has presented for the public process. And you can see that based on, partly on climate change, it now extends well into the city in these areas. And I apologize, it still shows up there, but this map didn't carry over the existing. And much of the flooding is due to poor drainage as a result of dense urban development and poor soils. The FEMA drafts are now in public review for a 90-day period, which will end on August 27th, and then expected that they will go into effect sometime mid-2015. Why is this important to the city? I want you to remember it's only 2 square miles. We're already built out. We have nowhere to expand, and we can't move development out of these areas. This shows some of the locally significant sites, with one being our Everett Ave urban renewal area. We're concentrating millions of dollars of infrastructure investments as well as private investment in buildings and jobs. Housing Authority, Housing Authority, Housing Authority, and Housing Authority. Redevelopment for hotel, redevelopment for hotel. Hotels under construction in this location. Our elementary school complex. our high school complex, charter school, city yard, those were locally significant. Now here's the regionally significant. This is the former Mystic Mall, 39 acres, that we are working with the developer to do a transit-oriented development site. The Mass General Hospital has a significant presence in the city. That's their clinic that serves the North Shore, Chelsea, Revere, Everett. 3, the federal government is about to start the construction of a 250,000 square foot regional FBI building with 400 employees, or at least that's what we guess. They won't officially tell us. This is the state's, what's called the MITC, Massachusetts Information Technology Center. It's the state's computing center. All the DOR and all the RMV computing centers are there, and I'm sure as far as DOR, a number of us won't care if it floods out. This is New England Produce Center that provides most of the fresh produce for much of Massachusetts and New Hampshire. This is the MWRA's North Regionals, which serves all of the North Shore. It's their headquarters as well as their mechanical equipment. We have several, we have 2 regional tank farms for oil, gas, and on the Revere side, this is also a oil terminal that serves Logan Airport. This line here is the commuter rail line to Newburyport. It's also the proposed route of the Silver Line extension, which will go into construction early next year. So this shows the regional importance of why flooding and coastal climate change is important. This is a little difficult to read, but basically it is our zoning map overlaid in the new flood zones, and you'll see that in the flood zone is all our business, our light industrial, our shopping center, our waterfront, our more industrial, all important to us, but all within the proposed floodplain areas. So as I indicated previously, we're 2 square miles, and economic development is very important to us. We, back in the early 1990s, Chelsea had the ominous privilege of being the first city to go into receivership since the Great Depression. We came out of that in 1995 and have built a very strong economic development effort in order to make sure that we never go that way again. We have a 5-sector economic development based on, and I can never remember all 5 of them, airport-related, food production, back office, and the other 2 I'm going to have to look up and get back to you on that one. Basically, in conclusion, the flooding is going to affect seriously our economic development. Some of these costs to address these issues, and the city will address the issues as we need to, but these costs are going to be borne by the city. If borne by the city, that means higher taxes for a very vulnerable population. It also means that some of these costs are going to be borne by the developer. And the concern here being that if the costs have to be are such that they are very high, we're going to be non-competitive with other communities for this type of development that we are now getting and that we hope to get in the future. Talking with some of the developers of these properties, they've already started to try to address the matters by either placing their key infrastructure above the expected flood line or raising the elevation of the building, of the parcel and the building to avoid the flooding. But both affect the design of the site and elevate the cost of development. Regionally, with the oil shipments and the MWRA and Produce Center and mass transit and security This will negatively affect not only Chelsea, but the rest of the metropolitan Boston region and actually New England. I'll put this back. And I'm free for questions. Thank you. Thank you. Sir.
Yeah, especially the additional flooding in the area upstream of Island End. Is that primarily because of topography, or is the expansion of the floodplain in that area primarily because of topography and maybe rise in sea level that's already occurred, or is it due to infrastructure limitations?
It's primarily based on topography and sea level change. At one point, Island End River actually flowed into this area, and this was all marshland. So when you look at the old topo maps, some of this makes sense. Sir.
Am I correct? These areas are FEMA map areas?
Yes, they are.
And have you done any bathtub mapping?
We have not. We're not as advanced as Boston or Cambridge is. We're actually just starting to do adaptation planning. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Agreed. But looking at the maps that the Boston Harbor Association had developed, it's actually very close based on their mapping.
Actually, I have a quick question.
Sure.
You mentioned private developers might pay for some of the adaptation. Yeah. You mentioned the private developers might pay for some of the cost of protecting the city from flooding. How would you determine how they would pay for that?
Not so much protecting the city from flooding, it's protecting their sites, their developments from flooding. And that's only the bigger developers that can do that. Let me go back. For example, the FBI site, they are raising their site 3 feet in order to avoid it, but they're also putting their infrastructure top. But they can afford to do that. They can afford to do that in that it's a 5-acre site. Smaller developers aren't going to be able to do that. Similar, we have 500 units of rental going up here. They are doing similar. They are also raising the site. But again, it's on a 4-acre parcel where they can readily do that.
It's still pretty progressive. That's a good sign.
Yeah. Well, the residential developer told us it was either that or $1 million worth of flood insurance.
Well, it's good they're responding to the market.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to move on. Oh, actually, let me take one more question.
Sir, ma'am.
You quickly mentioned, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. Oh. You quickly mentioned the fact that the region's food supply basically is in Chelsea. And mostly those are trucks,
Correct.
right, coming in from all over and going back out to supermarkets all over the region. I mean, that really would be, you know, a critical problem for all of us if that area were to flood, and it seems kind of inevitable. It's not the kind of thing that where you can raise one building. You'd have to raise all the roads in and out. Are you getting help from somebody else about creating a more resilient regional food system?
As I said previously, we're really just starting this. And we haven't looked at that aspect of it yet. We're actually going to be starting in the next 4 to 6 weeks working with students from Worcester Polytech through the Sea Grant office here on the adaptation planning for the area up here. It's going to be a start for us, but it's going to give us an indication of what level of investment we're going to have to make in this area.
You're sounding like you're on your own, sort of in planning for, I mean, you're having to take that on behalf of all of us by yourselves. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Again,